Are you finally ready to purchase a home, but you have zero idea on how it actually works? You know, it's a very common way of thinking, unfortunately, because people don't want to be taken advantage of. They want to get the best deal, and they want to know exactly what's happening from beginning to end. Buying a home can be very daunting, and for a lot of people, this will be the biggest purchase they ever do in their life. So this is why I created this first-time home buyer's guide, or even just a buyer's guide in general, to help you understand everything from beginning to end. So without further ado, let's just roll right into it. My name is George Rodriguez. I am a local real estate agent here in the state of Washington. So for the very first thing that we need to take care of is talking about the pre-approval. What a pre-approval is you're gonna work with the lender of your choosing. Reason why I say you're choosing, because agents and lenders, they all do the same thing regardless. So you have to separate them by core values. 1, do they treat you with respect? 2, how good is their communication with you? 3, how is their availability when you need them? Respectfully, of course, because I mean, if you're texting them at 9 at night, you mean how available would you be? And 4 is their experience. But I don't want experience to be based upon years. Experience and understanding of how one's job is actually conducted is the best way I like to separate people from others. We've all had that job where we had a coworker that's been there for like 10, 15 years and they're trash. Same thing can happen in this marketplace as well. So with those core values, you need to understand that's how you're gonna separate and choose who actually works for you. To continue on with the pre-approval, now that I went off my tangent. So when it comes to pre-approval, you may ask, George, well, how do they decide how much money am I gonna be pre-approved for? They're gonna go by your gross income if you're a W-2 employee. So gross income, essentially your income before taxes. So the nice big number you wish you would have had before Uncle Sam took out that money. That's what they're gonna use as your W-2 employee.
It's the worst part of the game.
Oh, it's what?
Taxes.
Now, if you're a business owner or you work for yourself, you're gonna have to show your income after taxes. So it's the opposite of what a W-2 employee shows.
It's a write-off for them. How is it a write-off? They just write it off.
So for example, if you made $1 million in gross sales, but you wrote off $1 million, you now made $0. So I'm gonna need everyone that is an entrepreneur or in that space. If you are ready to purchase a home, you need to understand that you need to be paying your taxes because it's gonna be net income on your portion. So you need to be aware and cognizant of that if you do work for yourself. So that under the table money is probably not gonna work out. You're gonna need verifiable funds. Now you can have a co-signer if you do need help to raise your pre-approval. For example, you can have a spouse, you can have family members to add into that so you can have a gross household income that'll be taken on together to assist you in getting that pre-approval higher. So when it comes to job history, you're gonna need 2 years of consistent job history.
Once you get your ass up to date, go out and look for a job.
Now that can be with the same employer preferred, but you can go from one job to another, but it has to be in the same career field. Meaning if you work nursing over here, you're gonna work nursing over here, or medical field, medical field. It transitions easier and allows that lapse of job history to be alleviated. Now, if you're switching jobs, exactly, let's say for example, you're going from nursing to security, well, now that break is now reset. So now you have to have 2 years of job history of where you're gonna be. Now, if you are a self-employed individual or a business owner, you're gonna have to show 2 years of tax returns, preferably that every year your tax returns are getting better as far as net income year over year. They can be the same, but it's just not gonna assist you in any better case in terms of if you are writing down your income on your tax returns so that you're making less. It's only gonna affect your eligibility of being how much you're going to get on your pre-approval amount. So one caveat, a lot of people do have overtime. Overtime can be accounted, but I've had that question asked where, how are they going to assess my overtime when it comes to my loan application? Well, here's how it's gonna be done. So overtime is gonna be on an average of 2 years. So whatever you've done in overtime over those 2 years is gonna be on average. Because of course, when you're doing overtime, your pay stubs on a month by month or bi-weekly basis are gonna be different. They have to take the average of that. So just rule of thumb, if you're trying to buy a house in the next 2 years or year and a half or whatnot, you're gonna have to start hitting that overtime book. You're gonna have to get some OT, get some coffee, and you're gonna be all right.
I'm not leaving. I'm not leaving. I'm not fucking leaving!
So you're gonna need to get started on that overtime. If that is gonna be a big sum of your income, you only need to approve that income prior to getting into that loan application. If you wanna chill out on your overtime after the fact, that's fine. Go ahead and do that. Then you're like, George, what else can I have to help prove verifiable funds to assist me in actually getting approved for a higher amount? Well, you have a 401k, you have child support, alimony, stocks, bonds, even disability. You can use those all in terms of getting your pre-approval amount higher as in verifiable funds. The money under the mattress is not gonna work in this sense. You can have gift funds, gift from a family member or even gift from someone, but it's only to a certain amount. I'm a real estate agent, not a lender. If you're gonna be taking cash out, you need to put that in your account and it's gotta be verifiable. You wanna have that on your bank statements. So the next thing we're gonna talk about credit. When it comes to your credit in the pre-approval process, it's gonna be very important to understand you have minimums. If you got bad credit, what makes you think that a lender is gonna loan you a large sum of money and you already can't pay your phone bill?
You know what your problem is? You think money grows on trees. Just go out and pick you $400 or $500 and go off and just dance and eat chicken and dance.
So for the credit scores you're gonna need to actually get approved for these loans, for the FHA loan, you're looking at a minimum at 580 credit score. The VA, it follows the same thing at 580, though I've been told there is no minimum for the VA, but let's just keep it a buck. All right, you know what that means? Let's keep it real for a second. That credit score is gonna affect your interest rate and you'll be getting hit on top of the head. For a conventional, you're gonna be at 620 credit score. For a USDA loan, you're gonna be at 640 for a credit score minimum. For down payment assistance, which is a very popular program, especially in the FHA, you're gonna need to be at least 620 to 640. And what that down payment assistance is gonna do for you, essentially it's just gonna move the front end amount for your down payment to the back end of the loan. Just because you didn't pay for it up front, don't mean you're never gonna pay for it. That money's gotta go somewhere. Lenders are gonna be looking at your debt to income ratio. But in essence, you need to be very aware that that $1,000 car payment or that $500 car payment is doing you no favors in terms of purchase power.
Thinking about making this my astrology sign, Supertarius.
So for a quick rule of thumb, every $50 in liability is gonna be around $10,000 in purchasing power. So if you have a $1,000 car payment, you just knocked off $200,000 of purchasing power on your pre-approval. I hope that whip was worth it. You know what I mean? Because you ain't gonna be whipping to a crib, going to the apartments, all right? So you need to get it together. So priorities, all right? Remember that, priorities.
You're gonna learn today.
So a good tip is to pay off your high payment debts off first. It's gonna help you on your debt to income ratio on a monthly basis. That's gonna do the most damage in terms of actually repairing your credit. It's actually gonna be alleviating what you have on a liability presence. When it comes to your mortgage payment, you're gonna be paying more than just the principal and interest. You're gonna have a few other things tied into your payment that's gonna assist you in the long run. Your mortgage payment is gonna have the following: your principal, your interest, your property taxes, your homeowner's insurance, and if you're paying PMI. So I know that was a lot of information, so if you need to go back and rewind or press pause, take notes, now's the time because this is important. Okay? So a lot of people, when they talk about loans, they know that there's essentially going to be a down payment, but no one really talks about closing costs. And we're gonna talk about that in a minute. Generally, rule of thumb used to be thinking was that you need a minimum 20% down. If you do 20% down, you're not gonna have PMI, and that's private mortgage insurance. Private mortgage insurance is the policy in which the lender takes out on you. That policy is just in case you default on your loan. The old adage where you needed 20% down is really only necessary if you're trying to take off PMI from your mortgage. So quick rule of thumb, if you don't own 20% equity within the property, you will be paying PMI. With the VA loan, if you're a veteran like myself, you served your country, you did your time to Uncle Sam, your down payment is gonna be $0. So it's a beautiful thing. $0, no private mortgage insurance. Now, if you're FHA, you're looking at 3.5% down. If you're looking at a conventional, it's gonna be 3 to 5% down. So a lot of these programs can be tied along with down payment assistance. Of course, VA, you're not gonna need anything of what is going to be needed on the front end. So now let's talk about closing costs. Closing costs usually catches a lot of people off guard because this is generally not talked about. And most lenders, they do bring it up, but it goes in one ear and out the other as a potential buyer because you just see the shiny lights of new houses. So I'm gonna break this down for you proper. Okay, properly.
I'm gonna save you! Michael is in trouble! I do not want to. Hold on, Michael! I am coming!
So those closing costs are gonna have the following. It's gonna have your property tax. It's gonna have your escrow fees, your lending fee, your first month's mortgage payment. It's gonna have any type of points you bought down. Points meaning you paid down for your interest rate, which is very common now because interest rates are kind of high. So this is why 2 to 3% is generally allocated for an assessment for what's gonna be on the back end. Which is why I always tell people, if you're looking to buy a home, you better have like $25,000 to $30,000 cash liquid, or work with a good agent or someone else that can assist you in one, getting those closing costs paid for by the seller, or even a lender can offer some types of credit. A lot of times they can't do too much because they're on more of a tighter budget. So usually the agent you're working with is gonna be the one that can actually assist you with getting creative to help pay that down so you don't have to. And yes, I'll explain that a little bit more to help you out. So I'm gonna give you some little numbers to give you an estimate of what I am speaking of. $500,000 at a 5% down is gonna be $25,000. Closing costs at 2% of the $500,000 is $10K. So that's $35,000 cash to close. From your down payment all the way to your closing costs. So be very aware. To me, the rule of thumb of 25 to 30 is usually generally baseline around this area, because if you don't have that kind of cash liquid, you're gonna have to get creative to get that paid by the seller or with some creative finance. So this basically wraps up the entirety of the pre-approval process and how they're going to judge you in terms of your income, credit score, and what type of programs you're gonna fit in based on your eligibilities and how that ties in with you personally or your family. So now that you have your pre-approval finished and you understand everything that comes with it and how they're going to assess it, now you're able to understand what you're actually able to afford, and you're gonna have that monthly estimate to actually go in and take into the marketplace to then assess the following. So now you're gonna list off what you need in the house, how many beds you need, baths, square footage, lot size, where do you wanna live in terms of location. These are the type of things that you're gonna have to go over and what's important to you, because based upon your pre-approval and where you're at in terms of your purchase price, you're gonna have to start taking things away and assessing what's more important, because you'll come to figure out that location will drastically change what you can purchase. Because for example, the closer you are to the city, the more it's gonna be. The closer you are to a freeway, the more it's gonna be. If you're in a good school district, the more it's gonna be. Now, it all changes the further away you get from all the amenities, the more bang for a buck you're gonna get on the purchase price of a property. And seeing what's most important to you as a home buyer for yourself or your family, that's most important, because you don't wanna be house poor.
I hate being poor.
Now that you actually label down your interest and you actually have your pre-approval, the biggest thing next for you is to find a real estate agent. The reason why I say that is because these agents are actually going to be able to get you into the properties that you're curious about seeing, that you see online, but you have to decide who is going to be your agent. And you're wondering, how do I do that? How do I find one? You can go to Zillow, they'll assign you one, or you can go to Redfin, or you can call certain brokerages around the area, or if you want to work with a family friend, that's totally fine too. But to me, family and friends aren't always a shoe-in that's going to be the best fit for you. The things, again, like I said earlier in the video, do they show uniform respect, communication, availability, and experience of knowing what they're doing? If they have all these things, then maybe they're a good fit for you. And that's how I determine who best works with me, and that's how I've used it my entire life. Years of experience does not mean a thing. Having a good agent can change the entire complexity of the entire deal, because one, you're gonna be seeing a lot of properties, and two, when you're ready to put an offer in, having a good agent will change the entire complexity of your home buying experience, which is why I say it's paramount. With closing costs coming in the back end, you're able to then work with these agents to help assist on the offers that you're gonna be placing these properties. You have to ask yourself, what is the most important factor in purchasing a home? Is it the purchase price? Is it how in the world am I gonna pay these closing costs in the back end when I've already paid for this damn down payment? Because after you finally find the house that you want and you put the offer in, you have to ask yourself this question. If they don't ask it, I'm gonna ask it for you.
We'll be asking the questions, old man. Who are you?
You.
No, not me, you.
Yes, I am you.
What is most important? Is it your purchase price? Is it your closing costs in the back end? The reason why I ask this, because in this market that we're currently in 2023, you're more than likely going to be able to get the property beneath asking. But you have the closing costs in the back end. Are you more comfortable with paying that closing cost in cash, or do you want to get these seller credits to assist you in paying it down? Or do you want to have creative financing by offering over asking and taking the overage to add to your closing cost assistance? Let me go ahead and explain that slower for you. Let's say your closing costs, due to your programs that you've done and you're buying down your rate, you have $15,000 of closing on the back end. Let's say your agent, me, gets you $10,000 in credit for the purchase of the property. So with that $10,000 credit, you have $5,000 left over in overage, meaning no matter what happens, you got $5,000 left over. You have a few ways in which you can go about this. You can speak to your lender to see if they're willing to actually finance that in, or you have the option of creating your own money and going over asking by $5,000 and adding that into your seller credits, totaling $15,000 from the 10, and now you have all of your closing costs paid. You need to rewind that. You have different ways to make everything seamless and having $0 cash coming out of your pocket, because now you're able to manipulate numbers. So lastly, to wrap it up, do not be afraid to ask questions. Your silence is not going to do you anything. You trying to figure out on your own when you're working with professionals in the field. So if you miss something along the way and you see it on the back end, you're going to be pissed off. It's best to ask most questions that you can to your agent or your lender, and just understand that the transparency across the board is going to do you the most favors in the long run. Remember, buying a home is a big decision, but it's an exciting one. So you have to make this time fun, you have to be picky, and you have to ensure that what you're walking into is gonna be something you're happy with. End of story. It's very important to have a very strong understanding of what's going into the purchase. And with this video, you're definitely gonna have everything you need to actually make the best consensus decision, and at least have a baseline of understanding what you're gonna need to do to actually get the property of your dreams. So remember, education is power. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and have fun in your home buying journey.